Hey everyone, welcome back. My game is almost finished and it feels good to have gotten this far. Again, this is really just going to be a proof of concept or like a prototype for other ideas that I have in mind. And I've never made a game before, so this will be my first full sort of start to finish process of making a game and releasing a game. And again, this is going to be released for free on itch.io, and it's super short, so just, lower your expectations now. You could probably beat this game in about 5 minutes if you know what you're doing, but the point of this was really for me to sort of refine my art style, learn how the game engine Godot works, and yeah, I'm proud of myself for having gotten this far, so let's take a look at some of the changes that I've made since my previous video. Thanks for sticking with me. Let's get started. Alright, so there's one new thing in the home scene, which I'll talk about in a second. But as for the features that I removed the ability to actually pick vegetables in the garden. I'm a little sad about that, but I don't think it adds that much to the game. I originally implemented it just because I thought it would be kind of cool to have it. It seemed like every indie game had a garden you could either plant stuff in or pick from. So I wanted to see if I could do that. And I just think it's going to be a bit more effort than I want to put into this in order to get it in there, and it's not really that necessary. So you can still look at the things, it still looks pretty cool, I think, but you can't actually interact with anything. So that brings me to the first new element that I made since the last time, and that's this little sort of pedestal with a glowing sun. This actually allows you in the game to change between day and night. So basically, once you complete catching all the butterflies, this pillar will become active, and then you can switch over to nighttime so that you can catch fireflies. So let's take a quick look at how this works. So when you complete catching all your butterflies, the variable that I use to keep track of that changes to true, and it activates that pedestal. So when you interact with the pedestal, it triggers a cutscene and switches from day to night. So this is currently how I'm handling pretty much all my cutscenes. Like, it's a series of yields and series of timers with functions and specific events and setting variables. I don't think this is the best way to do it. I think depending on how you organize your scenes, a lot of this kind of sequential code like this can be handled in an animation player. And I think I'm going to utilize that as much as possible going forward with games that I want to make, because if the cutscene is pretty elaborate, then trying to do like a big list of steps here is just not really feasible, and it just really adds a lot to the script itself in terms of what you have to read. But anyway, it gets the job done, and since this game is pretty small, I'm not too worried about it handling cutscenes in code directly like that. So to trigger the sort of endgame cutscene, you have to complete the catching all your fireflies. So I switched the variable that handles that to true so we can see what happens. But when you place your fireflies, it triggers the cutscene as normal, but then it's also activating another collision shape over here near the exit. So you don't really know what to do, and it seems like there's nothing else to do in the field once you've caught all the fireflies, and then as you're leaving, you hit the collision shape, it moves the camera over and sort of triggers this little adding a new character. So I've shown this character on the channel before. It's been a while since he's actually shown up in the game, but I'm going to use him as your sort of introduction to the end game sort of cutscene that's going to happen right after you talk to him. So in the script for the altar, I'm preloading that character's scene, and then once the conditions are met, it actually adds that scene or that character to the altar. It also then fades out all of the altar stuff I don't want anymore, like the actual stone parts of it and things like that, so you can get to the character and actually start talking to it. So once my Spirit Fox character appears, or technically is added to the scene, you can't actually see him. He fades in with the particles, and then another animation starts that sort of moves his little eye around and also moves the tails around. And in previous versions of the game, I actually had a crow character, but I'm no longer going to use the crow character. I think it's enough to have sort of one main character as the focus of who you speak to, and sort of initiates the sort of end game cutscene. And like the crow character was also going to fly around to different parts of the game, and you'd have to chase him. But once that's another one of those features that I think is a bit much to implement and doesn't add too much to the game or the gameplay. I think it's kind of cool, but this is really a minimum sort of viable product, as they say in the UX world, and just teaching myself as much as possible as we go. So I think it works for what I have now, and I'm not going to worry too much about all of the features that I thought I would implement if it seems like it's going to be a bit too much effort to get around to those. So I pretty much already know what I'm going to do to end the game here. Basically something's going to happen after you talk to the little spirit fox character, and I won't spoil that just in case anybody's interested in seeing what happens. But right after this, the game pretty much ends, and it's kind of like an intro to the next game that I actually want to make, which is the first game that I want to release sort of on Steam and any other platforms that might work. So all of this has really taught me a ton about what it takes to build a game and do all the things necessary, and I tried to focus on the techniques in this little prototype that I want to be able to use in my actual games. And I guess this is an actual game, but the games I mean to release commercially. And this process of making this prototype has given me enough to start work for real on the stuff that I really want to make. So I think this character is kind of cool, actually. I'm not quite certain on what dialogue he's going to say, but it's going to have some relevance to the whatever small story this sort of prototype has. So my next steps basically involve polishing everything I can in the game, fixing some of the weird bugs that I've seen pop up, and anything else I need to do to sort of refine my art style and some of the sprites and stuff like that. But otherwise, the sort of main gameplay events that happen in the little prototype I'm working on are pretty much finished. So it feels really good to have gotten this far and at least be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, hint hint. But otherwise, thank you all for sticking with me. Hope you all liked it, and I'll be releasing another video on the sort of Field of Flowers experiment that I did another video on pretty soon. But in any case, thank you all again, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks.